Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I'm just grateful to be a part of the program. I appreciate all the support that I've been given and will continue to get, I'm sure. And I think it's a good decision if this is what you really want to do. But I think that the educational part, that the information that you get is so critical, and you have to read it. And once you read it, you get a comfort level, and you trust the doctors, and everyone has been so caring about what is going to happen to you, what you will experience, and what they say you will experience, you do experience. You really do. But when they say it won't be that long, it's going to ease off, it all happened. But so I just think the experience was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I'm really glad I did it. Yeah, I'm really glad I did it.
I would say that having the transplant has been one of the hardest things I've ever done, but definitely also one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, if not the most rewarding thing, because this was a choice to save my life, and that's exactly what it did. One of my biggest fears upon waking up after transplant was being intubated, and that was something that I really didn't want to experience, and that's exactly what I did experience. I woke up and my hands were tied and I had the tube in, and luckily it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. It was definitely uncomfortable, but the nurses gave me a pen and paper, and I was able to write down questions, and they explained why I was still intubated, and I was actually breathing over the ventilator, so it wasn't like it was breathing for me. So it was something that I was very nervous about, but it was something that I was able to get through much easier than I thought I would be able to. One of the other recipients of my donor was a friend that I made in the hospital named Matt, and he was waiting for a heart transplant. And this is just a day after the surgery where we were able to take a walk together for the first time. One of the things that really surprised me about transplant is how quickly they had me up and walking around. And this is just about 24 hours after the surgery. The surgeons encouraged me to get up and move, which was incredible because before the transplant, I wasn't even able to sit up without passing out. And this is my little brother taking me for my first walk. I have found that there's this huge parallel between the transplant and the gift that I received from my organ donor and his family and the adoption that my husband and I are embarking on. We're literally getting the opportunity to receive another gift of life, and I just feel so blessed that I'm receiving two huge gifts in one lifetime. Waiting for the adoption has been a lot like waiting for the transplant. It's something that you need to be ready for, but it's also something that you can't really think about every moment of your day so that you can go on with your life. And they're both very nerve-wracking, both very exciting, and both very worth it in the end.
For patients, I would say take a good look at what your situation is. There's nothing guaranteed when you have a medical procedure, but it can change your life if it all goes well. I think that's what I was telling.
Well, I'd like to share that if you are considering a transplant, that you force yourself to be rigid in your lifestyle, that you force yourself to be a conformed person, that you need to conform to what the doctors say. I've had friends who have not kept their lungs very long and that have passed on because they didn't stick to the rigid lifestyle that we need to stick to. They didn't follow the doctor's instructions about medication, when to take them. They didn't follow the instructions about when to get their lab work done. It's important that we treat this as a life-saving opportunity because that's exactly what it was. And if we don't take care of those lungs, then the doctors are disappointed because those lungs could have gone to someone else. The donor family should be disappointed because the lungs could go somewhere else. So it goes beyond anything that you would ever imagine. You have to do a lot of soul searching in your decision to accept that transplant. If you're a rebel at heart, it might not be the best thing for you. So you really have to consider that your life is going to change. You need to be more open, more honest, maybe than you've ever been before. And you need to talk about your life. You need to talk about the things that you're feeling. If that means you need to get an outside psychologist or someone to talk with outside of your family, then you need to do that. Your healthcare provider will probably advise that. I became depressed after transplant. My life was changing so much that it changed so much so fast that it just got on top of me. And I don't feel badly about taking antidepressants. I just feel like that's part of what helps me to maintain who I am. And I'm happy that I have the opportunity to actually take that pill that will bring me back into balance. So I think, the most important advice I could give in my support group, in others that I meet in the waiting room when I'm going to clinic, is to be a conformist. Toss all your own opinions away, because our opinions don't really matter at this point. We really need to follow the lead of our doctors, and we need to be our own advocate, so we need to tell them when things concern us, but we need to heed whatever they say to do. And I think if you can do that, then your lungs will serve you well for as long as your body is going to accept them. And not to have any expectations of life expectancy. The doctors made it very clear that the goal of lung transplantation is not to have a long life, but to have a better quality of life. And so they have fulfilled that for me. 5 years is a long time to me today, because I had no hope of life beyond maybe 6 months when I had my transplant. So I'm happy for the quality of life that I've received so far. And of course I want to live longer. I'm not saying I want to go in 7 years, but I do want to live longer. But I'm also happy to accept whatever life my lungs give me. So I'd like to share a story about one of my friends that I met through transplant. She was a member of the pulmonary rehab in Concord at John Muir Hospital. And I had my transplant first. She was a single mother of 2. She did not adhere to a lot of the sanitary conditions that you need to have in your home. And I visited her home about 2 years after her transplant, and I found a very large tank in her home. It was probably an aquarium that was intended for fish, but she had about 6 or 8 turtles in this aquarium with an open top, so she had bacteria all over her home. After my visit that time, I could never go back because I didn't want to expose myself to that bacteria. I even talked with her about it, and I told her the dangers of it. She felt like because she had had the turtles before transplant, that it wasn't something she needed to change in her home. But our team is very specific about educating us on the things that we should and should not continue in our home. That is a very serious source of bacteria. My friend Cindy had a lot of health problems as a result of her lifestyle. I believe wholeheartedly that the turtles contributed to that because of the bacteria. I don't have any physical proof of that. I just know that it was a risk that she took that I wasn't willing to take. And she died earlier than I think she should have. She was a young woman. She was physically fit. She sincerely wanted to live, but she didn't want to live bad enough to let go of some of those things that were hampering her well-being. So I would, really like to caution people to take a look at their homes, take a look at the environment that you live in, that you socialize in, and clean up what you can. There are lots of things we can do without. And to be given, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever we get from our lungs is worth making the sacrifices to give up things that are unhealthy for us.
So the UCSF Heart and Lung Transplant team tries to make a calendar every year. So I was June this year, and this is me climbing in Red Rocks in Vegas, one of my favorite places to climb. And I made it in the calendar. So I've just been climbing a lot lately. I've been entering climbing competitions, outdoor climbing competitions, and I took first and second place last year in the ones that I entered. And just been getting back to what I want to do.
A story that I tell when I'm talking to people about my experience and sort of the tie-in with just giving up the process to the team here and also giving up the process in more of a faithful experience. Right before transplant, I had gone to a bakery in the town that I live in, and I went with a friend that I've known since second grade, and we had gone just to pick up cookies for her children's year-end school party. And we were sitting there and we were talking about our friendship and the kids, and we were laughing, and I was pretty sick and it was a big outing for me and I was on oxygen, but we weren't talking about health. We weren't talking about, what's going to happen, what if. And a gentleman had come in and sat at a table very close to us. And at the end, he walked up to me and he stood right in front of me and he said, "Don't worry about your surgery. All will be well." And I was so taken back at that moment. And we sort of were in amazement that this would have happened. And we looked up and this gentleman was gone. So that evening when my husband got home from work, I told him the story of the bakery angel. And it gave us a chance to talk about what we were facing because things happened so fast. We hadn't really worked through this process. So we finished our conversation and I was getting ready for bed, and 11 o'clock that night the phone rang. And it was Carrie, and she said, "Debbie, we have a perfect match for you. You need to get in the car and come to San Francisco now." So I really felt like I had someone there to let me know it was going to be okay. And now every year my husband goes to the bakery and has little custom-made angel cookies made, and he brings them home for me. Well, I know everybody gets their sense of things, how if this process will work, if you're going to be comfortable, if you have, some people are spiritual, some people are not, some people just go with the process. And so wherever your inspiration comes from, I really felt like this was something that was sent to just make me go, it's going to be okay.
1 strong heart, 2 healthy lungs, 3 walking partners, 4 miles across the Golden Gate Bridge, 5 decades of a life well lived, 6,000 miles flown after an 8-year hiatus, 7 inches of hair cut off in November, 8 states remaining in my quest to visit all 50, 9,000 milligrams and milliliters of blood and drugs, 10 new locations, restaurants, or events experienced, 11 relationships indescribably deepened with my caretakers, and 12 precious months of recovery, recuperation, and renovation. I would just like to re-emphasize the importance of opening yourself up to other people and the experience of transplant. It's hard. And especially if you're an independent person or somebody that is not independent and wants things to be told to you or done to you. I think the transplant experience is strengthened or supported. I'm not exactly sure of the right word, but by being open to all of the experiences that it might bring. I've met so many people, strangers, in doctor's offices, in meetings at various places, who, when they learn I'm a transplant patient, have so many interesting experiences about their connection to transplant. One woman I met, and she became aware I was a transplant patient. Her son was a donor, and she had heard from all of his organs recipients except for his heart's recipient. She goes, "Can I hug you?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." So we had like a little donor recipient proxy hug. So that just wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been kind of open to it happening. Share your experience, share your journey, share your fears, and I think it'll be a much better experience. You'll feel more supported, and if your experience is anything like mine, people will come out of the woodwork to say they love you. It's great.
I think as far as the program that UCSF does with lung transplants, I think it's phenomenal. I think it does more good than I think most people can understand. The process of lung transplants outside the community of people that are involved in it is fairly, knowledge is fairly low. I just can't say enough about the group and how they have helped people and helped myself. I think it's a great place.
I think the thing that I would share with people about this experience is to know what you're getting yourself into before you consider it. It's not something that you can look at as curing what you're going through. It's going to be as someone once said, it's going to be a change of problems. And you're trading one set of issues for another, in that if you feel you can't do what's going to be needed to be done, you have to seriously consider whether it's a route you want to go. But if you think you can do it, you need to jump into it full force. Dive in, don't go feet first, because it's something you have to commit yourself entirely and wholeheartedly to.